Good morning, Divas.
Good morning.
Good to see you all back again. As you know, I'm Raquel DeHoyos, and this is our series called Nourished. And we are on the last week of the series, and we're going to be focusing on the stomach and the gut. It's my favorite part. I have lots of experience with all of that. And we have a really cool recipe that I created just from a lot of ideas, but also because I was sharing with Shirley earlier. When I was a kid growing up, we ate a lot of cream of wheat. And so I kind of have that childhood memory of like, that was a very comforting food for me. My mom always made it. I grew up in Milwaukee, and so very cold, right? And it was nice to kind of have sort of that nourishing, warm meal at the beginning of the day. However, a lot of what we've been talking about through the series is how do we continue to make sure that we're getting all of the nutrients that we need, especially when we're going through illness and maybe we can't tolerate a lot of foods. This one is a good one because it's got some great things in it. It's very simple. The recipe that I have, the samples that you all will be tasting are the exact recipe. We're going to alter it a little bit for the demonstration because I forgot the milk today. There's always one thing that I forget, but I will talk about it in a minute because I want to share what I used for that. But we're going to be making basically what I call a vanilla protein pudding bowl. So it's not quite pudding in the sense that it's milk and sugar and eggs and all of that, but it's got the consistency of a pudding. And I don't know, has anybody ever tried like those smoothie bowls, or they call them like acai bowls, and it has kind of like a smoothie base and then there's all sorts of fruits and granola and all sorts of yummy things on top. People really love those. I don't know how you can eat so much of that. Like usually when you see them, they're in a big bowl. I kind of think of something like this. You could actually enjoy this hot or cold. We're going to make it cold. So they've been made in advance so you can try them that way. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to take cream of wheat, just a plain cream of wheat cereal, and we're going to use about 3/4 cup of that, and then add that. What I use for the recipe is oat milk, and you could use regular milk, you could use water like we're using today, but basically you want something to cook the cream of wheat in. The oat milk that I used is the Planet Milk or the Planet Oat oat milk. It's a plain. There's no like flavoring to it, but it's the Barista Lovers version. If you can find that at your HEB, it's pretty readily available, and it's super creamy. And so a lot of times when we're dealing with stomach issues, the dairy is kind of hard on our stomach. So that's why I made this one more like plant based. And so I use the oat milk, but you could definitely use water as well. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to start with 4 cups of water or 4 cups of, whatever milk you want to use. And I'm just going to turn this on here. And so the trick is people always say, well, what's the deal with cream of wheat? I don't like it because it always gets clumpy. I feel like this is a little lopsided, right? Let's see if I can prop this up a bit before I... the trick or the secret to doing, yeah, I see that, but I think it's let's see, there we go. I think it's this too. There we go. Ta-da! There we go. And I'm going to just put that up to high. So the secret to making sure you don't get the clumps in there is to slowly add in the cream of wheat, right? This farina. It comes in different flavors. I was mentioning, you could get like Maltameal and chocolate. That would be cool. Or you could just get the plain one and then add cocoa powder if you wanted to do the base of this pudding bowl as something different. Also, if you can find sometimes you can get, what are they? They're like dehydrated fruits, like strawberries, and almost like you could grind that up as a powder. You could put that in there. That would be really good. But we're just going to let this kind of come to a good simmer. And I've got this on high, so that should just take a little bit. No, I think that's all it goes. It's up on high, or it should be. I'll give that a few minutes. I don't know if it'll turn red like, like a regular burner. It's feeling kind of hot here, so I'll give that a minute. Keep an eye on it for me. The other thing that we're going to add to this is protein powder. So you could just make this straight cream of wheat, right? But again, we're trying to add in as much nutritional, just some great ingredients to boost up that nutrition. And so I thought about using protein powder. Has anybody used a protein powder before in like, your smoothies and things like that? Is there anything else you use it in? Well, sometimes, it comes in these giant canisters, containers, right? And you're like, what else do I do with this besides put it in my smoothie? You can use it in all sorts of things. And so today I chose this one. It's Garden of Life is a pretty good brand when you're purchasing, supplements, or they're one of my favorites. This is just a vanilla protein powder, but it's plant-based. You can also buy regular ones that have like whey protein. But again, because I'm trying to eliminate some of the dairy, we're going to use this one. And so I'll pass this around so you can see that. But it's a great source of protein. There's like pea protein in there. The sugar that's used in here, it says 0 sugar because it's using a sugar substitute called erythritol, which we'll talk about in a minute. But that also keeps, the sugar content down. And it has great probiotics and enzymes in it to help with digestion. So I'll pass that around so you all can see that. But definitely take a look at all the different options for protein powders that you can use. So let's see, hopefully that gets going here. I'm going to just add it in because it's going to dissolve and that'll give us a little time. So this is sort of my technique. I have the milk or the whatever liquid, I don't want it to come to a full boil because the bubbles will then start to clump your farina. So I just let it come to a slow simmer and then add in slowly my cream of wheat, just a little at a time. And so some great things, nutritional properties of cream of wheat. It's a great source of iron. And, for women, that's really important for us. It's also a great source of calcium. And there was one other thing I read, which I had no idea about, but it's, what was it? It helps white blood cells fight infection. And so I kind of thought about, you think about chicken soup, right, when you're sick, but cream of wheat apparently has some great properties that also help keep us healthy, help keep our immune system strong. So that's a nice one to think about in the winter. Okay, so that's going to come together in a little bit. And then the next thing we're going to do is add, it's about 1/3 of a cup of that protein powder. So since it has a vanilla flavor, I will be adding a sweetener, which is honey, in a minute as well. Oh, you know what else? I forgot the butter. This is the last class I will be back in December with all my ingredients. My goodness, it was just one of those mornings, but you are all gonna try. I was so focused on making all the samples this morning that I forgot 2 of my ingredients. Okay, so we're gonna pretend we're gonna walk through this, but basically we're gonna come. The trick to this is let it, come together. It'll thicken up. And then as soon as it starts to bubble, it's a little dangerous. So, keep an eye on it. And then as soon as it starts to bubble, take it off of the heat. But you're going to add in 3 tablespoons of a plant butter. And one of the other recipes I did last time I like that brand Country Crock that has like either avocado oil butter or an olive oil butter. It comes, actually, I just saw it comes in salted and unsalted now. And it has it's more like margarine. Yeah, but it's a plant-based one, so I tend to use that. So we'll add 3 tablespoons of that in there. And then the last thing I add is a little bit of honey. So this is bubbling a little bit. This will take a little while to come together, but this is about 1/4 cup of honey. Now, if you don't like things super sweet, this isn't going to be that sweet, but you could just leave the honey out or maybe do a little bit less because that protein powder has a flavoring. Yeah, it has a vanilla flavor to it. So I'm just going to stir that in. And the butter is really, the plant butter is really also to kind of give it more of that creamy texture. You all know that cream of wheat, when it cooks up, it has that delicious kind of creamy texture to it. it's one of the favorite things that I enjoy about it. But when you let it set, then that texture tends to kind of come out even more. So that's why I thought, well, let's call it kind of like a pudding. But it's not the traditional pudding with like all the sugar and the eggs and the milk. Okay. So I'm just going to let this sit because it's going to take a few minutes. But that's really it. You could add a pinch of salt in here. You could flavor it with maybe some cinnamon. I do have cinnamon today, but that's really what I put on top. I try to keep stirring it just to make sure that there's no lumps in there. My burner's gonna upstage me here. But while we're waiting for that, so the other things that we're gonna use, so this will be just a beautiful, nice kind of texture. And get yourself, if you have any little parfait cups or whatever, use that. I'm gonna use this bowl once that comes together. And I'm gonna take all sorts of fruits, use whatever. So this is, again, kind of like adding additional nutrition. So we've got bananas, have you all seen these beautiful golden kiwis? Like you can get the regular. Yeah, these are great. There's green ones, but then if you can find these when you see them, try them. I usually buy them a few days out from when I want to eat them and just kind of leave them on the counter so they can ripen a little bit more. I bought these just the other day, so they're still pretty firm.
Is golden kiwi a color of the kiwi or a brand?
It's the color. Yeah, you'll see in a minute when I cut it up here. Okay, it's coming together. I'm used to my gas stove. This comes together fairly quickly. It's one of those where it's like, don't walk away from it because it'll start to bubble. And just be careful because it's almost like molten lava. Once it starts to bubble, you don't want it sticking to you. The other thing I wanted to show you this. So I was kind of skeptical when I saw this. It was kind of trending about a year ago, I guess. When you purchase your favorite fruits, especially like berries, often what happens, like you buy it with good intentions and you're like, I can't get through all of that. And then you have a whole container of things that are just bad, right? So I saw on, I don't remember what it was, maybe TikTok, Instagram, if you put your berries in a glass container, like a mason jar, it helps preserve them longer. And I was like, I'm going to try that theory. What I would recommend, because it does work, is I typically do it with berries when I have a lot of them, and I don't often get to them, but I try to eat, berries daily, is don't wash them. Wash them when you're ready to consume them because you don't want any extra moisture in there, but it really does the trick. They will last much, much longer. I had, I think, blueberries for maybe like 2 weeks. And they were still pretty good by the time I got to the end of the 2 weeks. Raspberries are a little tricky because they're a little more fragile, and but anything with like strawberries, blueberries works fantastic, and it looks kind of cool too.
And then you store them in the refrigerator?
And you just store them in the refrigerator. Yeah, put them in the refrigerator. I tend to keep them kind of on the top shelf, which is where things are a little bit colder in my refrigerator, not towards the back because then they'll freeze. But yeah. So, but yeah, it's a great trick. I was kind of skeptical at first. I'm like, this isn't going to work. Okay. Have you tried that before? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great because, especially, so like this recipe is also a great example of when we see something that's really beautiful and we take the time to prepare something that looks really, really appealing, like that also makes us feel better, right? Like, I don't know how many times I've taught classes and people will say, that's so beautiful. Like, it's so good, I don't want to eat it, but it's so pretty. And I think that's part of it too. Like, you have to make sure that the food is appealing and you want to eat it, because when you're sick, sometimes you don't have the appetite, right? And so you have to kind of like almost trick yourself into saying, okay, I do need to eat, but look how pretty it is, and maybe this will be something that I can enjoy. I think about like a lot of seniors, my mom in particular, as time goes on, like their appetite changes, and something very easy to digest is always good. But if you sort of play up some of the ingredients so that it's appealing, the appetite often comes back around. So, okay, we're looking pretty good here. This is just takes a few minutes. I think on the box it says like 2.5 minutes. I'm sure somebody timed that one day. But yeah, so we've got this nice thick texture here. I'm gonna just turn this off and take that off the heat. And so what I would do is just kind of let it cool down a little bit before you put it in your containers. And then, so for this particular recipe, what I did was I poured it into the containers and then I let it cool in the fridge overnight. You could just do it for like 30 minutes to an hour. But it's a good one. You know, we were talking about like meal prepping, especially when you have the energy to do a little bit. This would be a good one because you could make a couple for the week. And then just during the week, when you're ready to eat them, just kind of chop up your fruit and put that on top. I wouldn't recommend doing the fruit and keeping it just because the fruit has extra liquid and moisture, and that's going to kind of make it's going to bleed into the pudding part, so to speak. But yeah, so we'll let that cool a little bit while I kind of cut through some of our ingredients here. So we have bananas, which, what's the thing they tell you about bananas? Let's see. Pop quiz this morning for you guys. Potassium, yes. My mother has a half a banana every morning for breakfast. Potassium. And there was something else also. I always have to remind myself. Potassium helps to lower the blood pressure, right? B6. So that was the one I often forget about. But B6 is great because it's one of those like feel good, helps release one of those feel good hormones, which is serotonin. So if you're depressed, have a banana. Yeah. So keep your bananas around. Uh-huh. Oh, okay. Well, yeah. So Shirley was saying when she enjoys her bananas, she also enjoys. You're talking about kind of like the white in here. Oh, yeah, sure, absolutely. You know what I've also heard is if you put banana peels in water and let that sit and use that to water your plants, it's really good for your plants too. Oh, okay. She scrapes off the white. Yeah.
For nutrition.
Extra nutrition. Yeah. Let me do the strawberries next. Strawberries, obviously a great source of vitamin C, which again keeps our immunity healthy. So does anybody know how many seeds are typically on the average strawberry? All these tiny little seeds.
93.
Oh, keep going. It's close. 200. I would not have guessed that either. Apparently 200. I had a friend I used to work with, and he would not eat strawberries because he said the seeds got in his teeth. And I was like, that's weird. I've never noticed that in all the time that I've been eating strawberries. But he was very sensitive to that, so he did not enjoy strawberries. And so I'm just, these are already washed, but I just kind of cut some nice little slices out of there. All the beautiful colors. We'll do this big one too.
What's a strawberry super?
Not really. I just happened to find these beautiful ones, Driscoll, at Walmart, actually. HEB, I don't know, I get strawberries weekly, but the price of strawberries went up like $2 in the last week. So yeah, because they're not really in season anymore, but you can find them year round. Blueberries. So we talked about on our lesson of brain health, they're like brain food, right? So blueberries are great for us. We're going to have some of those. And then the kiwi. So what you want to do, like I said, is let it ripen a little bit. This one, I'm going to go for one that's firm but still soft, a little bit soft, because that's going to be a little bit riper. And I'll show you a trick. I'm always trying to show you guys tricks on how to cut things, right? What I tend to do, some people like to eat the peel. And I mean, the kiwis, these golden kiwis have a nice smooth peel. The green ones typically have that kind of fuzzy one. Some people will use a spoon, but I just cut both ends. And look at that beautiful color. Mm-hmm. So kiwi, vitamin C, right? Another thing, great for us. And I kind of just make a flat surface there so I can just basically take the peel off like this. Yeah. And this is kind of what I tend to do with any kind of citrus fruit. I think I was talking last time about grapefruit and how I like to enjoy that. I'll do the same thing with that and then just cut, some nice slices. You could use a potato peeler too. Yeah, that would work. My favorite kind of potato peeler is actually the one that has the horizontal blade because it's much sharper. You actually have to be very careful with those because they're much sharper, but they get the job done faster. So I'm kind of just go around the bottom, make sure I didn't miss anything there. And voila, you've got your kiwi cut.
You're such a neat cook.
You know, I have fun with that. It's very zen for me. So, and then I'll just cut it in half. And then you could, you know, do a little dice of this. You could just do the whole round of it. That would look beautiful. But I'm just going to cut it sort of these half moon pieces. And I can smell it already. It smells great. Okay. And then we're going to pull this all together so you can see it. And then Jose is going to come around and give you all the sample. So we'll pretend that this is cooled a little bit, but basically what I'll do is just kind of pour a portion into my bowl. Now this is a pretty big portion. Maybe if you hadn't eaten all day, this is the one that you would eat. There is just something very, very homey to me about pouring a bowl of, you know, cream of wheat. And my mom always will ask, is there butter in that? And I have to throw another pat of butter on top. She has to see it, you know, to believe it's in there. So yeah, so just let that chill. And then you can just arrange all of your fruit on top. And I'm just gonna, I think in the picture, I kind of did a layer of a little bit of everything. And you all will have a little bit of everything in your sample as well. And then we're gonna do some banana. Yeah, and then we'll do our beautiful kiwi. Now, maybe I'll do the blueberry just for contrast, you know. We don't want similar colors next to each other. I'll do a little bit of blueberry. And then we'll do our kiwi on the end. And I mean, I kid you not, if you were to make this for yourself, you could eat it warm like this too. Maybe sprinkle a little bit of granola clusters on top. That'd be really tasty. What I'm going to do lastly is just sprinkle it with a little bit of cinnamon. And cinnamon definitely, I think we may have talked about that too. Great anti-inflammatory properties in cinnamon. It's a great spice. Just smells good. Also feels like home when you smell that. And just sprinkle that a little bit. And then voila, you have this beautiful pudding bowl. Yeah. So, I mean, and you can use any kind of fruits. I just kind of chose these because I think they look cool and they're some of my favorites. But we'll go ahead and pass around the sample. Does anybody have any questions on this recipe? Yeah. Yes. Yes.
But how big is each one of them? Like,
What's a serving? Yeah. So on the recipe, you'll see it makes about 4 cups. So you could do 4 cups, or if you wanted a smaller serving, you could do just half of that and get more portions. So you could do like half a cup, but get 8 portions out of that. So that's what I base that nutrition information on, the smaller portion. Yeah. Yeah.
The ingredients say plant 3 tablespoons of plant butter. What's plant butter?
Yeah, so that was what I was mentioning. That was the other ingredient I forgot. It's a Country Crock brand that I use, and it's either a plant butter that's made out of like sometimes it's a coconut or chickpea, but it has almost the texture, similar texture to butter or margarine.
Okay.
But you can get it flavored in like they use avocado oil or what's the other one? Avocado oil or olive oil.
So you find it in.
You can find it where the regular butters are.
Where the
Yeah.
butters are?
Yeah. Sometimes it comes in like the little block of a pound, so the 4 sticks, or you can get just a little small container of it. Yeah. Yeah. So I like to use it in substitution of just butter if you can't have dairy. So we have some samples coming around. A couple other things I just wanted to mention. Yeah, you got to get through the fruit before you get to the pudding, but I'll wait to hear your reaction. Sounds good so far.
the kiwi is delicious.
Yeah, the kiwi is great. And, you know, some people aren't a fan of kiwi just because sometimes it's so bitter and it's so sour because it hasn't ripened. But I love when you get a ripe kiwi, man, it's just the best thing.
I've been told in the past that the yellow ones are sweeter than the green ones.
They can be, although I feel like if you get a really ripe green one, they're really good. Mm-hmm. So this is kind of a different take on a very simple, classic, like comfort food. Oftentimes when we're talking about stomach, distress and illness. You all may have experienced, like, they'll say do the brat diet, so it's pretty, it's like the banana, the toast, the rice, right? Like very simple on the digestion kind of foods. But I thought we could kind of take a different twist on this by adding the protein powder, which gives us additional protein and some flavor. The honey is also great because that's antibacterial as well, right? Has anybody ever heard here, like, eating local honey helps with your allergies? That's the reason. So today we used an orange blossom honey, which I think is delicious. Again, you could omit that if you think you don't need the extra sweetener. A couple other things. So honey is a prebiotic, and I wanted to mention that. So we talk a lot about like prebiotics and probiotics for food. Oh, and Jose's going to come around too and give you samples of that protein powder, so you can take this home and try that in whatever you'd like, smoothies, this recipe. But yeah, so probiotics are great because we naturally have bacteria in our gut that keeps us healthy, right? But we need the food to kind of feed that healthy bacteria. And so prebiotics like honey are a great source of that. So there's actually a phobia. Some people, probably my friend who doesn't like the strawberry seeds, there's a fear of strawberries, and it's called phobia. I don't know if that's a real thing. Apparently Google thinks it is, but I thought that's interesting. I'm like, what's to fear about a strawberry? It's delicious, it's colorful. I don't know. There's also a strawberry museum in Belgium. That's kind of fun. And then who do you think is the largest producer of strawberries in this country? California, yeah, 80%. They also mentioned some strawberries come from Florida. We have, sometimes you pick places around here. I say if you can find those, check them out because they're great. There's nothing like, it's almost like, the comparison of a store-bought tomato and, something that you grow. Fresh, beautiful little sweet strawberries are fantastic. Couple other things. So yes, I wanted to share on the back of this recipe, I put all the nutritional information of all the recipes that we cooked in this series, just so that you could see, because again, this series was about trying to find as much nutrition in the recipes that we're making, the foods that we're enjoying while we're going through either recovery or illness, because it is important to have the balance of, protein, some carbohydrates, some healthy fats. And so I wanted you all to just kind of see where things landed for that. This also has, if you take a look at samsungfood.com, it's a free tool that provides this nutritional information. So if you're ever kind of preparing your own recipes and you want to take a look at what the nutritional information is, just plunk it into that system. It's super easy. Samsungfood.com. It was a program that used to be called Whisk, like the Whisk, right? But they recently changed it. But it's great because it gives you, actually, there's much more information that it gives you. This was just kind of the top that I wanted to share with you. But it also does things like the glycemic intake and the glycemic load. And I wanted to explain that a little bit for those of you who aren't familiar with it. So glycemic index is how quickly a food raises your blood sugar level. And then the load is important too, because it's how it impacts your body's blood sugar when it comes to the carbohydrates per serving of that food. So the example that is often given is like, if you think about watermelon, it has a low glycemic index, or high glycemic index, sorry, because it's very sweet, right, naturally, but low in carbs, so a low glycemic load. So that's a great one if you're watching your sugars. So if you take a look to, like, our protein pudding bowl probably has the most, because if you think about all the carbs, the natural carbs from the sugars and the natural sugars in the fruits, there was a little bit of honey in there, and then the carb from the farina, the ground wheat product. And then the milk that we use, the plant milk. But all of these are nutritionally balanced because we wanted to bring in the whole grains. We brought in a lot of natural fruits. We use things like, in the tomato recipe, all those beautiful tomatoes and the onions. So just if you're ever sort of at a loss when you're trying to find something that satisfies you, or just feeling like I need to make sure that I'm eating meals or even snacks that have enough nutrition for me, think back to these recipes that we made. This one in particular also serves as like a great snack. The portion like this is pretty easy. What do you guys think? I mean, I'm seeing it's cleared the table.
I have one more
Sure, we got a couple questions here.
Now, That's a big bowl. How much of that is a serving?
Yeah, so I was saying if you want like half a cup is a good serving.
Okay.
Yeah, and then with all your fruits on top of it.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty hungry. Sometimes when I enjoy this, I'll do like a full cup. Yeah, go ahead.
If you make a batch of it and you put it in the refrigerator, how long is it going to last in the refrigerator?
Yeah, I would say probably 4 days.
4
Yeah,
days? Okay.
yeah. And what I did was I let it chill, and I don't like the little skin to form, so I'll let it chill, and then I'll put a cover on it, and then I can enjoy them. Like you could buy these little cups and just make a bunch of them, and then enjoy them throughout the week. Okay, I'm glad you guys liked it. Oh yeah, go ahead.
What was the name of that website?
Oh, SamsungFood.com.
Like it sounds?
Yeah, like the phone, Samsung Food. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why Samsung, they probably bought that company. That's how that happened. But you can sign up for free and then you just plop in. And it's also sort of like a recipe keeper. So you can save all your recipes in there and you can see other people who've submitted their recipes on there. Yeah, it's a great tool. I've enjoyed because it actually gives you all the vitamin information as well. So if you wanted to look at that specifically for your recipes or just meals that you've enjoyed, you can find that on there too. Okay, so I'm going to turn over to our nutrition information, kind of our last bit of info here. So when it comes to the gut and gut health, there's always talk about the most important thing, which is fiber as well, right? So you probably have heard this over the years that there's different forms of fiber. One is soluble, and that's basically the type of fiber that can dissolve in a liquid, dissolve in water. And then insoluble remains intact and it adds bulk, right? So when we're feeling like we enjoy foods that keep us satisfied longer, that's probably partly because the food is an insoluble fiber. It helps keep things moving through our digestive system, keeps us regular, all those good things. So examples of soluble fiber can be found in beans. That's a great source. Oatmeal. And then apples. Apples are a great source of fiber. Some people can't tolerate things like that because it's too much fiber. And I think I had mentioned previously, like if you're consuming these foods and you haven't, like that hasn't been part of your regular diet, try to do it in smaller portions so your body adjusts to that. And once it gets acclimated to having that, you can add on more, because otherwise if you add it on too fast, you'll have a lot of stomach distress, and that's what you don't want to compound with whatever else you might be having going on. So insoluble fiber, you can find it in foods like brown rice, popcorn, nuts and seeds, and then fruits with edible peels. So think about, like our edible peels, so pears, apples, things like that. The recommended fiber intake for men is about 38 grams a day, and then for women, 25 grams. So take a look, maybe just take a day out of your life and just track, are you getting enough fiber? Because fiber is really key to helping to reduce blood sugar levels because it encourages slower absorption of sugar into the bloodstream. And then it's also great for maintaining a healthy weight because, again, you're feeling full when you're enjoying those foods. It's helping you to kind of moderate your appetite throughout the day so that you're not feeling hungry and reaching for, sort of quick fuel, quick carbs that will possibly spike your blood sugar, and then you're hungry, 10 minutes, 15 minutes later. So all good things about fiber. And then something that people aren't familiar with, but I wanted to bring it up because through the course of my education and also personally going through situations with different food intolerances, some of the things that I've noticed that people aren't often aware of is because it's hidden in foods that sometimes aren't foods that we consume, but foods that we, or products that we might be using, sort of like toiletries. So gut health can be compromised by food additives such as sugar alcohols. And these are things like sorbitol and xylitol. So if you've ever heard of those, erythritol is another one, but that one's a little bit easier to digest. So it's commonly found to replace sugar. So if you see a lot of products that say 0 sugar, they might have one of those in them. They are often synthetically produced or kind of lab created. And they can cause gastric distress. So you might have some gas, some bloating, some diarrhea. And if you're consuming those foods and not noticing the ingredients or the nutrition label and it has that in there, you might be like, I've eaten foods like this before. What's suddenly causing this? that's always why I recommend people take a look at the back of the products of what they're consuming, because these are things that will show up. Two of the things that they can be found in are chewing gums and toothpaste. And the toothpaste one really got me because I had an experience where every morning I was like, doing my routine, brushing my teeth, eating breakfast, going to work. My stomach was always hurting, and I had, history of all sorts of stuff. But it wasn't until I saw a gastroenterologist and they talked about something called FODMAPs, which is a whole other topic we could spend a whole day on. But it was like a particular foods that have substances in them that cause gastric distress, and I had no idea. And on the list was xylitol, and that was and sorbitol, which was in the toothpaste. And so I started paying more attention to it, and there are really only 1 or 2 toothpaste brands now that don't have it in there. And it's so it's a Colgate, just a real plain Colgate. It's in like the red and blue box, and then they used to have the Optic White Colgate. But it's interesting because if you buy the pack that has 2 toothpastes per one, it will list sorbitol on it. But if you just buy the single, it doesn't. So I stay away from that one completely now. But it's interesting. I don't know what occurred that toothpaste manufacturers started to introduce that into their product.
Does it have anything to do with the whitening of the teeth?
I'm not sure. I mean, typically it's just like a substitute for sugar. So whatever they might have been using as that ingredient, they just swapped it out, probably for production and cost is my guess. But it is interesting because I had no idea that was something that could cause, especially for people, I think, who are already having sensitivities to, things that can trigger things with their digestion. So I often recommend people take a look at the nutrition labels on not just the foods, but also things like toothpaste. The sugar-free gums always have it in it. So if you're a fan of sugar-free gums and you've been noticing like, hey, why is my stomach always hurt after that? That could be it. And then research will show too that it's not only that it's causing some distress, like gastro distress, but it also can cause inflammation. So if you're immune compromised or you suffer from autoimmune issues and have some inflammation issues, that's one to just kind of keep an eye on. So I was hard pressed to come up with some creative ideas for our activities, but the number one, and it's so easy because it's low cost, right? And you can do it anywhere, is walking. Walking is great because I say like 30 minutes if you can do it, even every day would be great. But, even a couple times a week, it aids in our digestion. Like who's ever consumed a meal? It doesn't have to be a big meal, although Thanksgiving is coming up. And just like going for a walk afterwards, how much better your body feels doing that, right? Like the movement, the fresh air, but it just kind of helps keep things flowing. So walking is great for digestion, reduces that bloating sensation that we can feel sometimes. It's also great for stress relief. We think about the gut-brain connection, and it's sort of like how something as simple as walking outside can just relax our bodies physically, and that's great for the gut as well. So I always say, sometimes people say, I just don't have time for 30 minutes. Well, what if you broke it up throughout the day? Get up in the morning if you can and just take a quick, stroll through your neighborhood, get on a treadmill, put on your favorite music.
Even if you're doing it at your own house, you're watching TV and during the commercials, just stand up and walk.
Yeah.
During the commercials, very fun.
I agree. I mean, if you can just find a routine to get into just to move your body, walking is the number one thing. I have always done it my whole life, even, through different periods of illness and recovery, because it is one of the easiest things. And I just like to be out. Like I'm not a person who likes to be in and at a gym unless I'm taking a class or something, and being outside. And we've got beautiful parks here and all sorts of things. So walking, number one. Who here does like anything like golf or likes anything like that? Mini golf? Yeah. I haven't done it recently, but it is a lot of fun. And the thing I like about it is, again, you're out in nature. You're kind of, if you've got a competitive streak, maybe there's some friendly competition there if you go with a group. But it's great because it's also that social interaction, right? And anything that relieves stress is good for our gut. So that's another one. And then this is one. I don't know if you all have seen this, but hula fitness. I, during the pandemic, was going a little stir crazy, and I came across a gal from England. Her name is Rachel. I can't remember her last name, but she started doing all these hula hoop videos, and I just thought it was the best thing ever because she had the coolest music. and she uses a weighted hula hoop. So it's this large, kind of very comfortable rubber hula hoop. And when I say weighted, it's not like 10 pounds. It's like, I don't know, maybe three. Yeah, they're like foam. No, well, that's what I thought too. But I tell you, you put on your favorite tunes and you go to town. Once you figure out the balance, it's incredible. And it's just fun. Like you feel like a kid again. Like that's good for your gut. Like, and also it trims the waistline. I mean, if you do it enough, it's fantastic. If you have enough space, I don't now, but I own 2 hula hoops. But it is really fun because she would choreograph, all sorts of routines to different music. And I just love music in general. So, and I noticed there's a couple of San Antonio, like through the Parks and Rec, there's one place in particular, it's a dance studio over by Woodlawn Lake, and they have a hula fitness class now. So I may have to check that out. I hope maybe I'll see some of you all there. But you can also just Google, YouTube and find videos. You can probably find her. She's from England. She travels all over the country now, and she does actually certify people in teaching that, so you can become an instructor. I've thought about doing that because I really enjoy it, and it's so much fun. And it's really great. Like if we think about as we age, they always tell you about strength and maintaining strength for your bones, but also like maintaining your core for balance, because we don't want to be susceptible to falls, right? So it's a great one to think about. And then a couple of things, some fun stuff for our reading and listening pleasure. So Cook for Your Gut Health, Quiet Your Gut, Boost Fiber, and Reduce Inflammation. This is a cookbook that was put out a couple of years ago by America's Test Kitchen. Does anybody watch them kind of on the local PBS station? They're wonderful. So they do all sorts of recipes, but they're very specific. Like they test all of it so that when you get the recipe, it's perfect. And that's what I love about them. Like they'll do some really cool stuff and very simple techniques, sometimes more advanced technique, but they are sort of the masters when it comes to great recipes. And they just did this cookbook that was all specific to like gut health. And so that's a good one to check out. I probably will not pronounce this next doctor's name correctly, but I'm going to give it a shot. Dr. Will Bolchowitz. He's a gastroenterologist, and he has a book called Fiber Fueled and the Fiber Fueled Cookbook. And he also has on his website a lot of gut health courses. His website is called planetfedgut.com. And if you watch any of his videos on YouTube, he's really great. He's just very straightforward. He loves talking about fiber. I mean, he is just like passionate about the gut. But it's always fun because it's sort of one of those sensitive topics. People are kind of embarrassed to talk about stuff, when it comes to the gut. But it's one of the most important areas, our stomach and our gut. And if we keep it healthy, we will be healthy. So check him out. And then this last one made me giggle. I was like, is that really the name of this? It's called Butts and Guts. It's a podcast, and it's put out by the Cleveland Clinic and a colorectal surgeon named Scott Steele. And he's fantastic. So he brings on all sorts of physicians to talk about different things in gut health. There was a great one. He was interviewing a dietitian talking about like histamines and how that affects the gut. So check that out. It's free. All of these are free. The book you can purchase probably on any of your favorite book sites or Amazon. But yeah, some great resources there. I hope you check them out. And I want to thank you all for coming to the series. Yeah, thank you so much. This was great. Any other final questions, final thoughts as we wrap up here?
What was that milk?
Oh, so it was called Planet Oat is the brand, and they have all different flavors, but it's the Barista Lovers one that it comes in a red and white box. It's really good.
I did look it up just because I do that.
Yeah.
Dr. Geo.
Love it.
Anyway, xylitol, erythritol, those are whiteners for your teeth. And they're supposed to be deemed safe by the ADA in whitening your teeth better than what they used to use.
Interesting. Okay. Well, thank you. Yeah, so xylitol, sorbitol, teeth whitening. But it's causing, I'm sure I'm not the only one, it's causing people some grief because, it's hard to digest for some people. So thank you so much, you guys. I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. And we'll see you back hopefully in December. We're doing healthy holiday recipes. So I'll be back for that. All right. Thank you.
So much.